The National Park Service Organic Act is a United States federal law that established the National Park Service, an agency of the United States Department of the Interior. The act was signed into law on August 25, 1916, by President Woodrow Wilson, and is located in Title 16 of the United States Code. The act was sponsored by William Kent of California and Sen. Reed Smoot of Utah. First NPS Director Stephen Mather was put in charge of supervising and maintaining all designated national parks, battlefields, historic places, and monuments. Background: national parks began to be designated in the second half of the 19th century, and national monuments in the early part of the 20th century. Each park and monument was managed individually or, alternately in some cases, by the United States Army, each with varying degrees of success. Beginning in 1911, Senator Reed Smoot of Utah and Representative John E. Raker of California had submitted bills to establish the National Park Service to oversee the management of all these holdings. The bills were opposed by the Director of the U.S. Forest Service, Gifford Pinchot, and his supporters. The Forest Service believed that a National Park Service would be a threat to continued Forest Service control of public lands that had been set aside for the timber trade. Beginning in 1910, the American Civic Association, with the support of the General Federation of Women's Clubs and the Sierra Club, had led the call for a federal service to manage the parks. The noted landscape architect and planner Frederick Law Olmsted, Jr., was also a booster of a single national organization to manage the national parks. Successful and influential industrialist Stephen Mather was challenged by Interior Secretary Franklin K. Lane to lobby for legislation creating a bureau to oversee the national parks. Mather accepted pro bono and with assistance primarily by a young lawyer named Horace Albright, a campaign was begun. By 1915, regular meetings were occurring in Washington at the home of Congressman William Kent of California. The group's regulars were Congressman Kent J. Horace McFarland of the American Civic Association, and the few Washington staff members of the Department of the Interior responsible for the national parks. The Act. 64th Congress of the United States of America, at the first session, begun and held at the city of Washington on Monday, the 6th day of December, 1915, an act to establish a National Park Service, and for other purposes, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that there is hereby created in the Department of the Interior a service to be called the National Park Service, which shall be under the charge of a director, who shall be appointed by the Secretary and who shall receive a salary of $4,500 per annum. There shall also be appointed by the Secretary the following assistants and other employees at the salaries designated: 1 Assistant Director at $2,500 per annum, 1 Chief Clerk at $2,000 per annum, 1 Draftsman at $1,800 per annum, 1 Messenger at $600 per annum, and, in addition thereto, such other employees as the Secretary of the Interior shall deem necessary, provided that not more than $8,100 annually shall be expended for salaries of experts, assistants, and employees within the District of Columbia not herein specifically enumerated unless previously authorized by law. The service thus established shall promote and regulate the use of the federal areas known as national parks, monuments, and reservations hereinafter specified by such means and measures as conform to the fundamental purpose of the said parks and reservations, which purpose is to conserve the scenery and the natural and historic objects and the wildlife therein, and to provide for the enjoyment of the same in such manner and by such means as will leave them unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations. Sec. 2. That the Director shall, under the direction of the Secretary of the Interior, have the supervision, management, and control of the several national parks and national monuments which are now under the jurisdiction of the Department of the Interior, and of the Hot Springs Reservation in the state of Arkansas, and of such other national parks and reservations of like character as may be hereafter created by Congress, provided that in the supervision, management, and control of national monuments contiguous to national forests the Secretary of Agriculture may cooperate with said National Park Service to such extent as may be requested by the Secretary of the Interior. Sec. 3. That the Secretary of the Interior shall make and publish such rules and regulations as he may deem necessarily proper for the use and management of the parks, monuments, and reservations under the jurisdiction of the National Park Service, and any violations of any of the rules and regulations authorized by this Act shall be punished as provided for in Section 50 of the Act, entitled An Act to Codify and Amend the Penal Laws of the United States, approved March 4, 1909, as amended by Section 6 of the Act of June 25, 1910. He may also, upon terms and conditions to be fixed by him, sell or dispose of timber in those cases where in his judgment the cutting of such timber is required in order to control the attacks of insects or diseases or otherwise conserve the scenery of the natural or historic objects in any such park, monument, or reservation. He may also provide in his discretion for the destruction of such animals and of such plant life as may be detrimental to the use of any of said parks, monuments, or reservations. He may also grant privileges, leases, and permits for the use of land for the accommodation of visitors in the various parks, monuments, or other reservations herein provided for, but for periods not exceeding 20 years, and no natural curiosities, wonders, or objects of interest shall be leased, rented, or granted to anyone on such terms as to interfere with free access to them by the public, provided, however, that the Secretary of the Interior may, under such rules and regulations and on such terms as he may prescribe, grant the privilege to graze livestock within any national park, monument, or reservation herein referred to when in his judgment such use is not detrimental to the primary purpose for which such park, monument, or reservation was created, except that this provision shall not apply to the Yellowstone National Park. Sec. 4. That nothing in this Act contained shall affect or modify the provisions of the Act approved February 15, 1901, entitled An Act Relating to Rights of Way Through Certain Parks, Reservations, and Other Public Lands. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Vice President of the United States and President of the Senate approved the 25th of August 1916. Woodrow Wilson. Additional reading: The Birth of the National Park Service, The Founding Years, 1913–33. Horace M. Albright has told to Robert Kahn, Howe Brothers, Chicago, Illinois, 1985. Management Policies, 2006. National Park Service, U.S. Department of the Interior, National Park Service, Government Printing Office, Washington, D.